the series with talking about the downfalls of canned cat food. So I do recommend a canned food diet above a dry food diet, and it's certainly worlds better and a huge step up from a kibble or dry food diet. However, it still has its downfalls, because when we feed food from a can, you can read right on your label the first few ingredients usually are, especially if it's from one of the brands I recommend, like some whole meat, some whole foods, some meats, some vegetables, maybe a couple fruits and whatnot. But then after that, on the label list, you're going to see a whole bunch of vitamins and minerals that all have to be added back into the food after the processing, because canned pet foods are still highly processed at high temperatures for long periods of time. And so this is really what's called denaturing the food. So it's breaking down the nutrients in the food. And so they have to add back all of these long lists of vitamins and minerals into the foods to make sure that our pets are getting these minimum standard requirements in their diet so that they don't become deficient in any nutrients. So what we really like to see instead is getting all those vitamins, or most of those vitamins and minerals, from the actual food sources itself instead of being added back. Because another thing that most people don't realize and think about is all of these vitamins and minerals that are listed on your pet canned foods or dry foods, they're not whole food sources. These are all synthetically lab-produced vitamins and minerals. So they're not even as bioavailable to the body. The body isn't even able to digest and utilize them as effectively as, say, vitamins that they're getting from an actual food source, like this little licky stick. So many things to consider there. And then the last point of a downfall of the canned food is if we just kind of take the marketing agenda away and this whole context of pet food and just look at it very simply for what it is. It's a can of food. And we all know that for us humans, we would never want to eat something from a can every single day for our whole life. We wouldn't want to eat that, number one. Number two, our doctors would never recommend that. Our doctors would never recommend we feed our children something from a can every single day. It's just kind of basic knowledge for humans that we shouldn't eat something from a can every day. A can of food, a can of spinach, let's say, we all know is not as healthy as the fresh, real spinach, especially if you can get it from your garden or local or organic. It just doesn't compare. It's apples to oranges. So I just want to try to kind of put that thought in people's minds that it's still a processed food. It's still a food from a can. Having a fresh food would be a much better option. So, Stubby's running away from me on here. Hey, bud. So, what are the other options for foods then, people will ask? Well, some better options are, number one, best option usually for most pets is going to be a raw food diet, a balanced raw food diet, because it's not processed, it's not cooked. Pets were not meant and intended to eat cooked foods, they were meant to eat them raw, so they digest them better, more quickly, more effectively. And second best would be a cooked diet, a balanced cooked diet, whether you're making this diet yourself and using a pet nutritionist to balance it correctly, or you're purchasing a pre-made commercial cooked diet. There's many of them popping up on the market now, available for cats and dogs, thankfully. Something like a freeze-dried diet, freeze-dried raw diet is another really great option, as long as you remember or know to add the water back to it. And also any type of dehydrated foods. There's a lot of great dehydrated foods now for cats or dogs, and these are whole foods that have been gently cooked and then dehydrated slowly at low temperatures. So the food has been less damaged by heat, less denatured, and more rich in all of those natural sources of vitamins and minerals, so they don't have to add so many things back as they do in a canned food diet. So that's really about it. That is the concept of canned foods and the downfalls in feeding your pets only canned foods, and some other options. So just something to think about. And you know, when I'm working with my pet clients and working on nutrition stuff, you know, I like to, I mean, not always, not for everybody, but for most people, kind of taking this in baby steps usually works, especially when we're working with cats, because they tend to be picky eaters and not really quickly want to go to healthier options. So if you're feeding your pet a kibble diet now, make a slow switch over 2 to 4 weeks to a canned only diet. That will be a huge step in a better direction. If you're feeding a canned only diet, take a few weeks and switch to a dehydrated diet or a freeze-dried raw diet. And then maybe from there you go to a more fresh, cooked or raw diet. You know, just take those baby steps, take your time with what you can do, and slowly let your pet adjust, and just keep trying to, over time, give your pet a more whole, healthy food option.